I just think we really need to like get past this whole, oh, we just need to have a conversation kind of thing. Because the whole like we need to have a conversation is itself an economy. Like, don't think that it's not obvious when Ash Sarkar puts out a book and her whole promotion around it is woke is dead. Hello, you're watching or listening to Lobotomy World. I'm Jen Ives. How are you doing? I feel like I need to stop introducing it like that, you know? I don't need to always cover all the bases and be like, you're either watching or listening to or, you know, experiencing Lobotomy World in some kind of other form that I haven't experienced. Like, I can just say you're listening to. Because regardless of whether you're watching it or listening to it, you're still, I could just say, hi, it's Jen Ives, you're consuming Lobotomy World. Maybe I'm overthinking it. Maybe I should just say, hi, I'll do it again, look. This is a good idea, watch this. Hi, Jen Ives here, and this is Lobotomy World. How are you doing? Yeah, I prefer that. How are you doing? I'll do another one just in case. Take 3. Hi, Jen Ives here, and this is Lobotomy World, the podcast which is dedicated to queer issues and primarily trans issues, but also all of it, if something is pertinent enough, in the United Kingdom, the UK, or as some people like to fondly refer to it as, TERF Island, which is really weird because I've heard a lot of gender critical types, transphobic types adopting the term TERF Island. It used to be a sort of disparaging thing. It used to be something we used to say to draw attention to the fact that so many TERFy weirdos were in this country. But what they've done now is they've taken the term and they've reclaimed it, you know, to be like, yay, it is TERF Island, and actually, we bloody love it. We love TERF Island. We like to get our sun cream on, go lay out in the turfy sun. Anyway, let's start with a little bit of admin, I guess. I have a Patreon. I know it's a little bit crude up the top to just tell you. The truth is, I've had a Patreon for a really long time. I've just renamed it. It used to be called Jen Ives, was the Patreon, but now, just for brand synergy, I've renamed it Lobotomy World. And if you're interested in supporting me on Patreon, you can go to patreon.com/lobotomyworld, and you can sign up there for as little as £3. It really helps. Or join the Substack. Either way, you will get access to, as a paid subscriber, a new, additional podcast. Well, it's the same podcast, but it's bonus episodes of this podcast. Every time I record one of these podcasts, I'm actually going to record 2 podcasts. One that's really focused on the topics I want to talk about, and another one that's just a little bit more, you know, like let's just have a chat or whatever. You're under no obligation to do it, but just know if you join the Patreon, there's lots of stuff on there already, and it's a good way to support me if that's what you want to do. Also, you know, more people have been enjoying Lobotomy World recently. I've had some pretty good numbers on some videos. Again, nothing like Mr. Beast. I know I said I was coming for Mr. Beast, but, you know, I wasn't saying it was going to be immediate. We're building. But we did hit 200 subscribers on this channel. Oh my god. That's crazy. 200 subscribers? So, I figure 200 subscribers, you gotta say, hey, give me some money. But no, seriously, you're not under any obligation, obviously. But if you do want to support me, that's how you can do it. There's a link in the bio. You know how it goes. Updates, okay? I got updates. Washing machine updates. We still don't have a washing machine. We've been making do, with the bath washes, putting the clothes in the bath, and then, well, we used to stir them. I was stirring them around for a bit, you know, but I've decided that I don't know how effective that is. As good as you can get stirring around clothes in a bath, you're never going to be able to match the energy of the electro-motorized drum. So I just let them soak. And luckily, though, because the weather is super, super hot, I don't know where you are. You might not be in the UK. But at the moment in the UK, we're having a little bit I don't want to say a heat wave. We're having a small heat wave. We're having a heat slush. A heat splash, even. A heat splash. I like that. I coined that phrase. A heat splash. That's what we're having. We're having a few days of really bad heat, which is why I'm not wearing that much clothes today. And I'm not just doing this to be like, look, you know, it literally is really, really hot. That's why my hair's down, and it's why I'm not wearing any makeup. If you're a listener and you're not tuned in on the video, newsflash, I'm not wearing any makeup. The truth is, I've not worn makeup now for months. I used to wear foundation and powder and all that kind of stuff, and lately I've just been like, forget it, fuck it, you know? And I don't think that's so much to do with the heat. I think that's more to do with a slight bit of giving up, in a way. I'm not giving up. I'll never give up. That's why I'm making these podcasts. I'm not giving up. But in terms of like my appearance, I'm not giving up on that either. Okay, I obviously still care, but I do care less. There's a part of me that's just like, you know what? If you're not going to let me in the toilet I want to go in, I'm not putting in the effort anymore. Because let's face it, a lot of us transgendered individuals, a lot of the sort of stuff that we do in terms of the way that we look, a lot of the sort of things that get criticised sometimes, like, why are you wearing so much makeup? Why are you so hyper femme? Is that what you think womanhood is? A lot of that we do, if we do it, is not really always because we want to. It's not because we're like, I can't wait to wear a little skirt. Look how long my eyelashes are. Not that there's any problem with that in the slightest. And, you know, you do you. And everybody likes to look nice sometimes. Believe it or not, if I'm going out for dinner, I will get dressed up. I will put on a dress, I'll put on a nice pair of shoes. If I have to. If I want to. But I haven't heard as many people talk about this. I've heard some people talk about it. I'm not an originator. But I think a lot of that stuff is because, right, passing is complicated. And actually, a big part of passing successfully, and I don't mean in stealth. When people talk about passing successfully, I don't think I mean like, oh, you don't know I'm trans. I think what I mean by that is like the makeup and the feminine clothing and all that kind of shit. What that is it's a social signifier, you know? Like if you meet someone for the first time and they're wearing a dress and they've got long hair and they've got makeup on, you wouldn't necessarily be correct, but you would be pretty, I think, within your rights to assume that what that person is, you know, expressing and going for is the F. You know, the woman, the female of the species. And again, I'm not making any kind of like judgment on that, and I'm not saying it's right one way or the other. It's not right. We shouldn't have to do that. But if it makes a trans person's life easier, we will do it. You know, it might be effort to get dolled up. It is sometimes. Makeup's expensive. But if doing that signifies to somebody, hey, listen, you know, this is what I'm going for here. That's just the way it is. And, you know, a lot of cis people do that too. They're just social signifiers. But I think since things have gotten weird and bad on Turf Island, as I now feel uncomfortable saying, not that I ever really used to say it anyway, it's kind of a stupid, term. Like, I get it, but also, I don't like the term turf, not because it's offensive. It's not offensive. I just don't like it from the point of view that, you know, you're calling someone a trans exclusionary radical feminist, and most of these people, they're not very feminist in my opinion. They don't have feminist values in the way that I recognise them anyway. So that's why I'm not keen on the term, because I think it is part of the problem in that it legitimizes these people as feminists. I mean, look at these sort of really horrible gender critical people at the moment who have managed to make waves, not splashes, waves in the law against us. One of the main sort of tactics that they've used is painting themselves as feminists, painting themselves as women's rights activists, and then the dialogue becomes, it's trans people versus women's rights activists. It's trans activists versus women. And it's like, no, it isn't. Most women are on our side. Most women are accepting and understand and have more brain cells than that. They understand the dangers of biological essentialism, you know? But in the kind of stupid, brain dead world of the mainstream media, you then get these simple, tribal sort of arguments, and it doesn't really do us any favours. Anyway, I'm not morally grandstanding. You can say turf all you want. I don't care. I get it. But what I'm saying is my washing machine is still broken. That's the point of what I'm trying to say to you. So I've been putting the clothes in the bath, letting them soak for a few hours, and then hoiking them out, yeeting them out, and hanging them up. And the only benefit of this balmy weather is that they do dry relatively quickly. But I'm dying to get a washing machine back. I tell you what, with a washing machine, you don't know how much you love it till it's gone. That's not somewhere we want to go back to. I know that we're all about going back in the past at the moment. I know conservatism and fascism is very in right now. And I'm not a fan of that. I don't want to see that at all. But I especially don't want to see us going back to washing our clothes in the river, using a mangle. I live in London. What river am I going to wash my clothes in? The Thames? The last thing I saw in the Thames that was interesting was the Thames whale. Who remembers do you remember the Thames whale? I feel like the Thames whale is something that I talk about all the time. I bring it up constantly to friends and family. Do you remember the Thames whale? And people remember it, but I just don't think it had as much of a sort of cultural impact on them as it seems to have done on me. That was a big deal to me. I mean, I didn't see the Thames. If you don't know, a few years ago, quite a long time ago now, I suppose, a whale got into the River Thames. Because the River Thames is obviously connected to the wider ocean. But a whale got lost and it ended up in the River Thames. And it was a crazy day. Everyone was like, oh my God, there's a whale in the Thames. And I saw it on the news. I didn't see it in person. If I'd have seen it in person, I would have done something about it. I would have saved it. But unfortunately, I wasn't there. And the whale did die, because anything that touches the River Thames dies. The River Thames is polluted beyond the imagination. It's awful. But I think about the Thames whale a lot. I feel like it's a really sad story, a whale that was just trying to do its whale business and got lost and ended up in one of the worst places that you can end up as a whale, the River Thames. I'll put a photo up of the Thames whale if I can find one. But yeah, we haven't had anything like that happen for a while. It's a shame. It's always, I feel like that's one of those once in a lifetime events. There's a few of those, and you hope they're once in a lifetime because they're ultimately tragic. It's 9/11. What else has happened that was significant? The Pope dying. And a whale getting into the Thames. They're all pretty significant things. And I'll probably remember the Thames whale on my deathbed. It'll probably flash into my vision as the dopamine kicks in and I slowly start to die. All I'm saying is I hope they've done something to stop that from ever happening again. I don't want to ever see a whale in the Thames. I was talking to my boyfriend about this. It's surprising that more zoo animals don't run amok. Like, we went to the zoo recently. When we were in Berlin, we went to the Berlin Zoo. And I'll be honest, I don't know how I feel about the zoo. I have a love-hate relationship with the zoo. Sometimes I feel like the zoo is cruel. These animals shouldn't be in the zoo. They're in captivity. That cage is too small. That enclosure. You don't see a lot of cages except for the birds. And a bird never looks right in captivity, does it? It doesn't matter how big the enclosure is. If it's a bird, you're like, you shouldn't be in there. Even if it's like a flightless bird, you see it and you're like, even so, you might be flightless, but we don't know that. Maybe you just don't want to fly. That's your right. Just because you don't want to fly doesn't mean you should be put in a cage. But then, the zoos sometimes say, well, this is conservation and these animals wouldn't survive and these are sort of like the animal rejects that the other animals didn't like. And I don't know, some of that's probably propaganda. So I'm uncomfortable with the idea of a zoo, but I did go to one. Don't hold it against me. I went to the zoo because I wanted to see a monkey. At the end of the day, you can be the biggest animal rights activist in the world, and you should be. But you can't stop people from wanting to see a monkey. People want to see monkeys. Not sea monkeys. People don't care about sea monkeys. No one's cared about sea monkeys in a while. But monkeys, people want to see them. I saw a gorilla. And I'm telling you, gorillas are awe-inspiring creatures. You see a gorilla, even the most depressed gorilla in captivity. What I'm saying is you can't keep a gorilla down, really. You look at a gorilla and you're just like, you're a beast, you're a monster, but you're also me. When I see a gorilla, I think that's a human person. That's a person, a hairy person. So they definitely shouldn't be in there. But that's what I'm saying, right? Because a lot of these enclosures that you see in the zoo, the walls aren't that high. And I feel like if I was a gorilla, I'd get out. Now, maybe they know that they shouldn't. Maybe they know that if they get out, that means that someone's going to, like, tranquilize them or something. But I just feel like a lot of these animals in the zoo, they're only a few steps away in terms of consciousness from figuring this out. There are lots of animals in the zoo that could absolutely get out of the zoo if they wanted to. And I support it. I think if you're a human being and you go to the zoo, that's the risk that you're taking. You're taking the risk to be like, an animal might get out and might hurt me. If it gives you any comfort, there's probably a planet out there, a planet of possibly the apes, where the humans are the ones in captivity. I like the animals in the zoo, but the zoo, I don't know. Like, there was a giraffe in the Berlin Zoo, just like the giraffes, they're just like walking around. Like, there's only a very, very small gap between where the giraffes go and the humans go, and there's no fence even. And I was thinking, if a giraffe could jump, it could easily clear that gap. But then again, I don't think giraffes I don't feel like they have very strong legs. I remember when I was in London Zoo as a kid, this is the thing about zoos, right? You get indoctrinated by the zoos. You go to the zoos, they get you in the zoo early as a kid. And then you have it ingrained in you that the zoo is okay. I was at the zoo as a child, and I was in the insectorium. That's not what it's called. The insect area. And they had this exhibit. Well, there was this rope, and I remember like putting my hand on the rope, and I could feel something weird, and I looked at my hand, and there was ants on my hand. And what it was the rope was supposed to be like a thing where from one tank to the other tank, the ants would like walk along the rope and carry leaves and things and sticks. And it was supposed to be like, wow, look, they're close enough for you to touch. But I didn't realise that's what it was, and I had already touched it and probably killed a fair few ants. So what I'm saying is I've killed animals I've been to the zoo and killed animals at the zoo. I don't know how many of you are probably still here after all of that. I wasn't planning on talking about the zoo, but that's the thing about this podcast, right? It can go in any direction. It is about queer issues, primarily queer culture, pop culture. And you know what? That can be anything. I can talk about the zoo if I want. Why are you policing me? Not only is it hot today, my allergies are flaring up. I suffer from terrible, terrible hay fever, which in my opinion is an affliction. No, not an affliction, a disease that doesn't get enough credit as being like a serious debilitating thing. You get all these people with their sort of classic illnesses. Like, oh, I've got tuberculosis or whatever. But no one cares about hay fever. Hay fever debilitates me. It debilitates me so much that when I have hay fever, I struggle to say the word debilitate. Although I feel like I've got a good handle on it now. Debilitation. Today, this morning, it was just, when you just wake up and you can just feel it like thick on you, like in your throat, and you're just like, and you can't breathe. That's how it was. It was weird. It's like when I went outside today, because I did leave the house, and I did have nasal spray, and I did have a tablet, I felt like I could see the pollen. Sometimes it's like that. Sometimes you look and you feel like you can see that the air is thicker. And I wonder sometimes, it's like, if flowers are supposed to be so smart, if there's this like perfect ecosystem with the bees and the flowers and the pollen and all that kind of stuff, why aren't human beings factored into that ecosystem? Like, why are you trying to kill me? Like, I didn't do anything to you. I very rarely ever picked a flower. And yet there's something in me. I was born with some sort of deficiency where I'm incredibly sensitive to pollen. Like, allergies are so embarrassing. Like, people care about people with like nut allergies, for example. I mean, I don't think people care enough about it. Actually, I think nut allergies are incredibly dangerous. I have a friend who has a nut allergy and she could die if she eats like peanut butter. But again, you have to admit, it's stupid, isn't it? It's like, you can die if you eat peanut butter. It's like, I get it that you can die if you are a soldier, or you can die if you work on an oil rig, or you can die if you crash a plane. But it's like, you can die if you eat peanut butter. Okay. Obviously, an allergy to pollen is not as bad as that, but it is pretty pathetic to say to people like, no, I can't really function today because of flowers. Anyway, let's get on with the queer stuff. That's why you're here, aren't you? Jen, stop talking about the Thames whale and the hay fever and the zoo. Like, get to the queer issues. Well, you shouldn't assume, okay? The zoo could be a queer issue. I'm sure there are some queer gorillas. But listen, I get it. You're here for a reason. You're here for the specific queer human issues. What's been going on this week? Well, since the Supreme Court ruling, yes, we're going to continue going on about this because it does have implications. We've been seeing how the ruling, in which I am designated a non-woman, we've seen how that ruling has affected businesses, organizations, things like that. And what has really surprised me? Well, I say surprised. I'm not really surprised by anything anymore. But still, it was interesting how quickly some of these organizations have come out to make their changes. Like the FA, which I'm told stands for Football Association, I think. It's either association or academy. I'm not into football, but it's called the FA, which to me stands for fuck all. But yeah, the FA has come out and officially banned trans women from participating in women's football associations, teams, whatever. Also, Barclays Bank came out and was like, hey, we've reviewed the ruling stuff, and yeah, actually, we're not going to let our employees who are trans women use the women's bathroom. And I was like, whoa, like, you guys came out quick. You've been waiting on this. You've been dying to exclude us. That's what it feels like. It feels like you had it already in the can and you were just waiting to, like, put it out there. It's a weird thing talking about sports as a trans woman, because here's the thing. I don't like sports, okay? I've never, ever liked sports. But because it is such a timely and pertinent issue, and because it is unfair, and I'm not talking about it's unfair for trans women to be in sports, it's unfair for trans women to not be in women's sports. That's the point I'm making. Because it is unfair, just because I don't like sports doesn't mean that we shouldn't, care about it. It was a journey, it took me a long time to care about sports. My initial reaction when this stuff first started rearing its ugly head was like, so? When I was at secondary school, I would not do PE. Like, I would do it if it was like basketball. I like basketball. That's a sport that I like. Not because I like moving around and being active. It's because I like the sound of basketball. I think lots of sports have different sounds, don't they? The sound that football makes, I find really grating. It's like whatever the opposite of ASMR is, that's what football is to me. I hate the sound of the whistles. I hate the sound of the crowd going like, and I hate like all the sound of the football being kicked. Like, I hate all of that. I don't know if that's like a trauma response. I don't know if that's from like going to an all boys school and just like, I don't know, that it just does something deep within me. It just makes me want to like run as far away as possible. But basketball, I find the sounds in basketball very soothing. Like, I like that it's indoors, firstly. That's cool. I like being indoors. And I like the sound of the ball bouncing. And even more than that, I like the squeaking of the trainers. Like on the floor. That's a cool sound. I could listen to that all day. And then you have the sound of the ball going in the net. Like the shoo. It's great stuff. But the point is that for the most part, by and large, I'm not really into sports. So every week at school, when it was time for PE, I forgot my kit. And obviously, I didn't forget my kit. I just didn't bring my kit. But the teachers, they were fighting a losing battle. And they couldn't really, like, do much about it. I would even say to them, I'd say, like, listen, I don't like doing PE. You don't like me being here. Can I just go to the library and do something productive during PE time? And they were like, no, you have to be here. This is physical education. And I was like, let's be real, there's no education. What are you teaching me? You're teaching me to be out of breath. That's not education. I mean, how are you grading this? Are you going to give me a D in being out of breath? I'm going to say it, PE teachers aren't teachers. I'm sorry. I don't care if you're a PE teacher and you're watching this and you're like, I'm a teacher. No, you're not. Saying that trans women are fraudulent, PE teachers are fraudulent. You PE teachers, you shouldn't be in a school. Big weirdos. Not all PE teachers, I'm sure. I'm sure some of you are lovely. But I would always forget my kit. Forget it, Leave it at home. And eventually, the PE teachers would get used to me not having the kit. And so what they would do is they would just stop fighting and they would just let me sit on the hill. There was like a little hill. and they would just let me sit on the hill with another kid who didn't ever do PE called Anthony, and we would just sit on the hill and we would just watch. And sometimes we would kind of clap and go, yippee! We were kind of like cheerleaders. We were the closest thing to cheerleaders at the time that the boys had. I don't think those boys liked it, the two long-haired weirdos sitting on the hill. But we did help. We did sometimes put out the cones and put away the cones. So yeah, so I'm not a sports head. I don't really care about it, but I do care about trans people being able to live lives that are normal and comparable to everybody else. I like trans people having equality and self-confidence, and I like trans people being included. I also like trans women being affirmed. I like trans people being treated with respect and not being othered. So in that framework, you have to look at it and be like, I support your right to do sport. I don't want to do it myself. If anyone starts trying to force me to do sports, I'm going to go ballistic. But if you want to do it, I don't get why, but you can. But the FA, they released a like letter. They put out a letter or an email or whatever to their trans women participants that essentially said, it was like, I read it, it was like, sorry, we can't do that anymore. From going forward, you're not going to be able to participate in women's sports anymore, even though you have been doing that. Sorry. But then there was like a little kind of like PS on it that was like, but obviously we don't want you to feel excluded. So if you want, you could have another position. You could be a referee. You can do that. You can be the referee. You could train to be a referee. And that was really bizarre to me. I think that whole thing about like, well, you can have this other position, you can be a referee. That's like a really telling thing about this. Because it's like, well, so the trans person can still be on the pitch. They can be on the pitch, but they have to be neutral. They have to be in the middle. They have to be between the two teams. You could be a commentator. You could observe and discuss what's happening. You can't make a trans woman be a commentator on a sport. What are they supposed to do? They're supposed to sit there and go, oh, there's Jane, she's passing the ball to Mary. I used to know them, used to be good friends with them, used to have good chats with them, good locker room banter, but okay. Oh, so Mary's got the ball. She's passed that to Jess. Oh, Jess. I remember I was Jess's maid of honor actually, but we don't talk anymore because I'm stuck up here in this box. Oh, and she's going for a goal. She's missed it. Oh no. That would have really made me sad in the past that my team missed a goal, but I don't know. I feel kind of excluded now, so good. Be a commentator, honestly. No one wants to be a commentator. Even commentators don't want to be commentators. They want to be on the pitch. This whole thing is just hysteria. It really is. It's hysteria. It's like absolutely based on nothing. It's based on nothing because if you make that argument and you say, well, what about the women that want to include trans women? You get, well, it's not about that. It's not about what happens on the pitch, actually. It's about what happens in the changing rooms or what could happen in the changing rooms. And then you're like, well, what do you mean? What could happen in the changing rooms? What could happen? You trannies can't help yourself. You are perverts. despite the fact that that is something that is just not true and not happening. But you wouldn't know that from the news. You wouldn't know that from the discourse that's happening now. I think the most damaging thing, or one of the most damaging things about this stupid Supreme Court ruling, is that it validates this assertion that trans women are just dormant sexual abusers. And it's like, that is disgusting. That is disgusting. Like, I'm having a hard time, like, verbalize it, because it just is so, like, I'm not, like, a theoretical person. Like, I read and I try to understand things, and I make up my own, like, little theories on stuff, and I post them to my Instagram and whatever. But ultimately, I'm not that smart. I just yap. I just say my opinion on stuff. But on this specifically, I find it hard because I guess I had more faith in people's, like, general intelligence. Like, I thought that the people of the UK were moving towards a slightly more enlightened outlook that wasn't essentialist, that wasn't boiled down to just biology, that looked at the world truthfully as it was, with all of its nuance and all of its sort of, like, complexity, and was just trying to, like, make the best of it. But actually what this has proven to me, this whole thing, is that, like, actually I was wrong about that. I was dead wrong to give the people the benefit of the doubt. Because actually what's happened is that people are just really stupid. And I hate to say that because it sounds quite dismissive, but keep being stupid. Keep showing me how stupid you are, and I'll tell you, like, it's so dumb. Like, biological essentialism, or just essentialism in general, is, like, so philosophically dishonest. It's just so simplistic. I honestly wonder if these people who just believe that, like, a man is a man, a woman is a woman, I just wonder if they just have any imagination at all. Like, if you sat them down and was like, can you, like, write me a short story? They would be the ones who would end their short story with, and then they woke up and it was all a dream. Like, they never grew out of that mode of thinking. And that's what breaks my heart the most about it, is that, I don't know, I had more faith in my fellow man, woman, and they, them. Because, like, where do you go from here? It's like, if you don't have faith in other people to be able to self-realize, to have bodily autonomy, and to follow their dreams regardless of their apparent limitations, what does that mean for you? Like, you're just hopeless. Like, biological essentialists, surely, like, you guys are just going to be prisoners of your own body. Like, it's really, really, really bleak. That's the thing, it's bleak. Here's where I think the problem is. I think one of the reasons that we're in this huge mess right now is because trans people, and it's not our fault, like, this is we have to do this. This isn't our choice. But we have, unfortunately, allowed cis people to speak on our behalf. Like, we've allowed, like, seemingly well-intentioned people of influence and power, we've allowed them to defend us, which is nice. We like it when we get defended. We like it. It's good to be an ally. The problem is, though, I think sometimes we give these apparently well-intentioned people a little bit too much space, like a little bit too much benefit of the doubt. They don't understand what it feels like or means, really, to be a trans person in the country today. And I'll give you an example of this, okay? So at the moment, I'm working on a video, not a podcast episode, like a put-together video about the Triggernometry podcast. Spoiler warning, I hate it. I hate the podcast. I hate the hosts. Konstantin Kissin and Francis Foster. Basically, they're two failed comedians who started, like, a right-wing grift podcast. And I've been morbidly fascinated with it for the past few years. I've had my own sort of like minor back and forths and sort of like forays into like the ecosystem of the Triggernometry podcast. I've gigged with Francis Foster before in the past, things like this, right? Pre-podcast. But as I say, I'm making a video about them, and I am, as a result, watching a lot of episodes of it, watching a lot of clips of it. And the other day I saw that they had a new guest on the podcast, and it was Deborah Francis White from The Guilty Feminist. And when I saw it, I just thought, come on, Deborah, what the hell are you doing? Because Deborah Francis White is, by her own admission, a feminist, someone who's passionate about LGBT rights, someone who clearly their heart is in the right place. But now I see that she's on the Triggernometry podcast. And whenever I see anyone on the Triggernometry podcast who considers themselves left or considers themselves, you know, not a fascist, I think, I'm not sure about your judgment. I'm not sure about your ability to identify people who are bad actors, people who are unsavory, unkind demons, okay? Now, it gets a little bit complicated because the reason why Deborah Francis White is on this podcast, which I cannot state enough, is a dog shit podcast. And I know they're probably going to be like, well, excuse me, they've got like 1 million bazillion subscribers. How many of you got 200? Yes, I've got 200. That's a big achievement, actually. Shut the hell up. But the reason she's on this podcast, right, is because her new book that she's got coming out, which I think is out already, I can't remember the exact title of it, is something like 6 Conversations We're Frightened of Having or something, right? Her book is another one of these, we should just talk to each other. Why can't we just chat these things out? And one of the chapters in this book is about trans rights and the way it intersects with feminism and the debate and all this kind of stuff. But here's the thing. She's going on the podcast because she's trying to promote this book. She's not actually going on the podcast with the intention of like changing these guys' minds or getting their audience, because she knows that it's not possible. At least I hope she knows. Because the book is about, oh, these conversations are so difficult to have. Can't we all just find common ground? It's like, well, they're difficult to have for a reason. Because one side is militantly, dementedly evil. Now, you might think that that is hyperbole. You might think that I am overreacting. But from a trans perspective, it's very, very difficult to look at the Triggernometry podcast and all of the videos that they've put out over the last couple of years and not see the calculated, orchestrated anti-trans campaign that they've put forward. Like the guests that they've had, the talking points that they're having, you know, the people they've endorsed and supported. It's like, okay, so you're going to go on the podcast and you're going to talk to them and you're going to change their mind. And look, if you do that, okay, you might sell a few more books. Good for you. Whoop-de-doo. Congratulations. But I don't know if it's worth the cost, because what you're actually doing by appearing on the show at all and complimenting them at the start and having all these platitudes and stuff is that you are legitimizing them and their position. By stating that their position is just a minor disagreement and that you can figure it out among adults. The adults are in the room again. Hooray! How arrogant is that? Like, you think that you are going to be able to solve this issue, that you're not even really, that you don't even have a stake in, really. Let's be real. All you're really doing by appearing on the podcast is validating them, because you're saying that these horrendous views that they clearly have, like, they're not making any secret about their disdain for the LGBT community. They're not making any secret about their disdain for Muslims, for immigration, for all these things. But you're saying, oh, these are like rational, normal people that I can actually have a conversation with. I just think we really need to like get past this whole, oh, we just need to have a conversation kind of thing. Because the whole like we need to have a conversation is itself an economy. Like, don't think that it's not obvious when Ash Sarkar puts out a book and her whole promotion around it is woke is dead. Has the left gone too far? And it's like, come on, like, you don't actually think this. And just for the record, I've read that book and it is actually a good book. I liked Ash Sarkar's book. And I like Ash Sarkar. The problem that I have isn't with the book itself, it's with the way that people have chosen to market it, specifically people on the left. Like, there really are people on the left right now who are like openly fraternizing with what I would perceive to be fascists, or at least fascist supporters, in order to expand their readership, whether that's for like good or bad, whether they actually believe that they're going to be able to sort of like convert people this way. Ultimately, the damage is much more, I think, in terms of how much you are validating them as respectable, intellectual thinkers or whatever. Like, Konstantin Kisin is not a respectable thinker, despite how many times you see him on Question Time. The guy has his brain is like the size of a walnut. The only person whose brain is smaller than Konstantin Kisin's is the little goblin next to him, Francis Foster, who somehow his brain is like 1/8 of the size of that. I'm not going to go on about them too much. I'm going to save it for the video that I'm doing. But the point I'm making is it's very disappointing to see these people engaging with these reprehensible human beings. And that is what they are to me. I mean, because here's the thing. I think as a trans person or a queer person, whatever, it's more obvious. I really believe that the only way to sort of ethically engage with the Triggernometry podcast is to sort of anthropologically look at it and try to understand why so many people are seemingly on board with something so horrendous. And I don't hate Deborah Frances-White, of course. I will give her the benefit of the doubt. I do think that she probably does think that she's gonna be the one to sort of like make them come around. And I guess we'll see, won't we? Let's see if they, after that appearance, change their ways. Let's see what guests they have on next. Will it be Nick Fuentes? Will it be Jordan Peterson? Who knows? Will Francis Foster have a Scrooge moment where he looks in the mirror and realizes, hey, I do actually have a backbone of my own. I can make my own decisions. I'm not actually physically attached to Konstantin Kisin. I don't actually need his blood to survive. I can exist separate of him. I don't know. I don't think that's actually going to happen. But, you know, we'll see, Deborah. We'll see how much of an impact you had. And, you know, I hope your book sells very well. Anyway, that's enough of this for free. You freeloader. Who do you think you are trying to get more podcasts than what you deserve? Thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed it. If you want access to a whole other podcast episode where I'm going to be talking about George Santos going to prison, then you need to become a patron. And you can do that at patreon.com/Lobotomy World. And of course, if you don't want to do that, you can just wait another week and there'll be another one of these, which is nice. I really appreciate the support. I really appreciate all the comments that I've been getting and just the general, like some of you commenters are awful. Some of you are like terrible people who shouldn't be anywhere near a computer. But a lot of you are really, really lovely. And it's been really nice to see like support in the comments and people sort of saying, I don't mean to me, I mean to each other. I mean people saying like, I'm having a really hard time right now. And then other people chiming in and being like, here's some advice, blah, blah, blah. All that's lovely. And that's sort of what I was hoping for. All the links to everything I'm talking about is going to be in the bio of this video/podcast. But if you want to follow me on Instagram, that's at I'm Jen Ives. And of course, if you'd like to check out the regular original blog of Lobotomy World, that is lobotomyworld.substack.com. There will be washing machine updates next week. because according to the estate agent, we should be getting our washing machine on Tuesday. I'll keep you updated on it, okay? Don't worry. Alright, thanks so much. Have a lovely rest of your day. I'm Jen Ives, and this has been Lobotomy World. Goodbye. From there, the lies continued to pile up, including allegations that he stole money from a fundraiser for a dying dog, and that he lied about his mother surviving the September 11th terrorist attacks.
What guy?
Cool guy.